Hey, JS Home Cook, JS Home Cooking Channel. Got another one for you today. And that's Asian cabbage soup. Did get some stuff at the store for this one. And what we got there was a couple serrano chilies, a daikon, lemongrass. As always, everything else from the garden fridge or cupboard. Inspiration for this soup was an abundance of cabbage. But we're going to get started up here. We'll talk about ingredients later. So we started out by making ourselves a mirepoix with a red onion, celery, and carrot. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, that's all a mirepoix is: diced up onion, celery, carrot in roughly equal proportions. And then you gently cook it on a low heat until fragrant. If done correctly, you'll be left with a medley of flavors. So we made ourselves that mirepoix, and when you go and make yours, try and get your diced up celery, onion, and carrot similar in size. You do want it to be uniform, or at least that's what some will insist. So do it for them. And while you're prepping your mirepoix, have your stock pot preheating on the stove at a low setting, and that way when you're done, you can just toss them in and you're good to go. You'll notice I have a second pot there with some stock in it, and that's just because I was uncertain about my approach with the lemongrass, which in my opinion is completely inedible and only there for flavor. I'll talk more about that later. Right now I'm going to talk about the stock. So the stock I'm using for this is actually one I'd made a few days beforehand. You can see how gelatinous it is as I use my hands to put pieces of it into the pot like an animal. The reason it's so gelatinous is because I used pig hocks and pig trotters to make it. And when you simmer those, you get a bunch of collagen in your stock. And then when it cools down, it turns into like an aspic jello sort of thing. Originally, I was going to use it to make a ramen, but then I never got around to it. So I made this instead. The next time I make it, I'll show you how. But if you don't have pork broth and you want to make something like this, chicken stock will work fine. So I tested the radiant heat coming out of my pot and determined it was ready. And when yours is too, you can reach for some vegetable oil and just put it in your pot, just like that. Then grab your mirepoix, put it in the pot, and gently cook it until it's fragrant. Because the heat is low, you don't need to fuss with it too much, but give it a little turn here and there with your spatula. And if you're not sure if it's fragrant, or you just have a really bad nose, or allergies, or a cold, or rhinitis medicamentosa, you'll know it's done when the vegetables look like they've softened. So while that mirepoix is busy cooking, we're going to prep the rest of our vegetables here. And we're going to start out with that daikon I mentioned earlier. So for this soup, I split it lengthwise and then thinly sliced it into half moons. And if you're not sure what a daikon is, it's an Asian radish. A long Asian radish. When raw, it tastes exactly like the little red guys. But after cooked, it sweetens up. And I'd never actually put one in a soup before, but I would definitely do it again. So I prepped that radish and set it aside for later. Next thing I grabbed was the lemongrass, but the next thing I sliced was actually the peppers. Don't really know what I was doing there. I thinly sliced those peppers up, and then I just put them in with the mirepoix and let them cook down a little bit too. I didn't really bother about seeding them or anything like that. I wanted the soup to be spicy. So like I said, I sliced it up thin, and once I was done, I just put them in the pot with the mirepoix and let it cook down. After I put the peppers in the pot, I started working on the ginger and the garlic. I used a decent bit of garlic for this, probably about 3 or 4 cloves. For the ginger, it's always a thumb. You know this. 1 thumb of ginger. You just need to decide if it's going to be a big thumb or a little thumb. Mine was medium. So dice up your ginger and your garlic fine, and once it's ready, you can just put that in the pot with your mirepoix and your peppers. And let it continue to cook for like a minute or so, and then you can add the broth. Preheating your broth like I did here is completely unnecessary. I did that because I had some thoughts about how I would handle the lemongrass. Originally, I was going to steep the lemongrass in the broth and then fish it out of the broth before adding it to the soup. And the reason I wanted to do that was because, in my opinion, lemongrass isn't edible and its only function is to provide flavor. But in the end, that's not what I did, so just add your broth, hot or cold, and then turn up the heat to medium. So once you've done that, you can get back to work on prepping the rest of your vegetables for your soup. The next thing I prepped was a bunch of kale and cabbage that I got from the garden. I chopped the kale and the cabbage up into big pieces because when it gets added to the soup, it'll wilt down into basically nothing. Then you'll be left with these dark green sheets that just drape over your spoon. And for some reason, I just like that. After cutting the kale and the cabbage, I got to work on my next ingredient, which was green onion. And I just sliced that up as thinly as I could and set that aside with the kale and the cabbage for later. I haven't talked or mentioned it at all, but you do need to season this soup as you're going along. So just season it, taste it, add accordingly. And we're just talking salt. So it might have been better to add this lemongrass sooner than I did, but here we are. I just cut that lemongrass into 1-inch lengths and then I let it steep in the soup. After allowing the soup to simmer a little while, I gave it a taste and decided I did want to add this can of coconut milk I had. I was trying to avoid going for a Thai sort of soup. I wanted it to be kind of just like generic Asian, whatever that means. But in the end, I thought, you know what, the coconut will go well with this, so I added it. I would recommend you do too. And I don't know what I'm doing here. It looks like I'm just slicing up a bit of kale rib or something, but really I'm just playing with a knife. Remember guys, always play with knives. And when you're done reconnecting with your inner child, you can get over to that lime and take care of that. When it comes to citrus, I'm a little conservative, but not like grassroots or paleo or anything like that. Just nondescript citrus Republican. So for that reason, I prefer to cut the lime into little wedges, and then I'll just add juice as I see fit. And then you also have extra wedges for people to add to their bowl if they want. And now that the soup has simmered a while, I'm going to take out the lemongrass stalk, and I'm just using a little strainer for that. For what it's worth, if I make this again, I probably will steep the pork broth with the lemongrass before adding it to the soup. Just seems like it might be a little bit easier, or just less tedious. But I removed the lemongrass, and this is the point where I added the radish. I don't have the footage, but this is when you add it. This is actually one of the first videos I shot, and I'm just getting around to editing it now. So if you're wondering where is that chicken cabbage soup I made with that lamb wrap, it's coming eventually, but you know, I've got a back catalog I got to get through. But once you have your radish in there, just continue letting it simmer a little while, maybe like 15-20 minutes. And then test a piece, and if it's tender, you're good to go. You can go ahead and add all your cabbage and your kale or your greens, whatever you're using. And like I said, those greens will wilt down, so you can go big with your greens if you want to. And once you have those greens in there, you know, they're going to cook really quickly. It'll be done within about 10 minutes or so. So give them a little stir, and don't worry about them too much, and it'll be ready shortly. So that's basically it. Ginger, garlic, peppers, lime, coconut milk. If you have fish sauce, that would be really good with this. You could add teaspoons of it until it tastes right. If you wanted meat in it, shrimp would be good. And if you need to, you can balance out the flavors with a bit of sugar. For flavoring this soup, you really do have to taste as you go. That's just cooking. You might have noticed some curry paste and curry powder in one of the shots. I didn't end up using those. But if I end up making this soup again, I will do a set recipe for it if anybody wants, you know, just ask. That's it though. That's my Asian cabbage soup. Thanks for watching, and stick around for more videos.